Hi there and welcome to Bustthenet. Yes, on today's show, we've got Gamechanger. And this is the show where I get invited onto your safe. I have a look at it. I make suggestions. I don't try to, change the way you play drastically. But the whole idea here is what would I do if I came into your game and I had this safe in front of me and how would I approach it? So that's the whole goal of Game Changer. So sometimes I will look at different aspects of your safe and sometimes I'll just look at your tactic itself and make suggestions and see, sometimes another look at your game from somebody else. It's can give you different insights. The first thing I notice when I look at the save here, it's with Newcastle, fantastic club. You've kicked out Rafa Benitez. That's sad, but never mind. Such is life. I'm looking at your wage budget at the moment, and if you notice your wage budget, you're spending a bit more than your wages. This is something that you want to try and avoid in the game. So as far as possible, if you can loan players out to reduce the wage budget, you should do it as quickly as you can, and that should be one of the things that you do. Now, we're going to run through several things before I go into the squad itself. Now, dynamics. I notice your dynamics is pretty okay. When I'm looking at your support level for the club, quite a few players are supporting you. Very good. Probably down to the fact that your profile is reasonably solid. You've got a decent profile going for you. You're a Singaporean playing, managing in England, doing quite well, as we can see. Flying the national flag of Singapore proudly in the UK. Unfortunately, you lost your last game against Man City 3-1. Now, what we are going to take a look at when we look at dynamics itself, the one thing that you want to remember about dynamics, you gotta make sure that these players are players that you also win in the long run. Why do I say that? Because eventually when you start winning games and you start leading and people start taking a look and go, that's a good player you have over there, then you can actually send these players to talk to the disaffected player or the player who wants to leave the club, and by asking them to go and talk to the player, it actually works, because these team leaders and these highly influential players can definitely talk to the players and get them to stay in the club, and you don't even need to get involved. So that's something I like to do. In terms of happiness, you see most of your club, they're all jumping up and down. Wow. So a Singaporean is not screwing things over. That's cool to know. Okay. What about the then we go through the next few. There's a few other stuff that I noticed. Okay, when you go to your training, I noticed you on fitness, so I've changed it to balance. You should be on balance by the time you're in September. There's no real need for you to stay on fitness unless you want to do the focus kind of training. You also had 2 rest days. Rest day before and rest day after match. Now, not necessary. What you should have is just 1 rest day after match, and then have the second rest day when you have a fixture congestion. I've also we've got a home match coming up against Chelsea, so I've also told your team to focus on attacking movement. Yep, we haven't gone into the whole tactic yet or the squad. We're just going to focus on some other things. Now, when it comes to your staff in your club, one thing that I like to do is I like to check the staff. I'm always making sure that we have physios and sports scientists. Now, physios help with treatment and sports scientists help with prevention. That's the important thing to remember. What you always want to make sure is that prevention doesn't necessarily mean those injuries won't happen, but you get a better heads up from your coaches when they give you the reports. And then once you notice there's a player who's at a very high risk of being injured, what do you do then is you make sure that you rotate the player accordingly. And I'll come to that point very, very soon. Now, when you're looking at your scouts as well, remember that your 4 scouts, they're enough. You don't have to go overboard with scouts too early, because the more scouts you have, the wages go up. Then after that, you're tempted to send them scouting individually, and then every time you scout, the costs go up. So what we want to try and do is to try and balance scouting. So I'm going to show you what I mean in a while. So when you go to scouting, you'll notice that you're going to have these kind of cards that pop up. You can also filter them based on requested assignments. You've done some requested assignments to get some scouting done. That's good. If you do all these filters, everything for you, you go to preferences, you can choose a sort by date, and you can do a minimum recommendation level. So they only come to you if they see a 50% over there, and then they'll recommend him to you. Now, here, what we want to do is find a way to manage our costs, because each time you send your scout out here, you click on this little button, the costs go up. So there's gonna, and you don't need to go all the way to 100%. I mean, people want, there's this thing about I meet a lot of completionists in this game. They want to have everything done like perfectly, but the moment you go to 100%, then the costs go up. And what do you want to do is, when you see available on free transfer, offer them a trial. Forget about scouting them, and if they're worth it, bring them over. Naturally, you want to look at their range of attributes. If the range of attributes are half decent, this is cost free. They come in, they go on a trial, you stick them into your reserves, have a look at him, give him 4 weeks. After 4 weeks are up, then okay, fine. If he's good enough, you can sign him. If he's not, you can show him the door. What about players like this? When you have about 70%, that should be more than enough for you to get a good idea of whether you should continue scouting the player. If he's a wing back and attacking midfielder and a midfielder on the right, now I have a list of attributes, right? So I've covered this in my videos, and it's also in my book. Now, when I talk about certain support duties, there are going to be attributes that are really important to those support duties. So if you want them to defend and attack, then positioning and off the ball is important. Right now, if he's a wing back, you want him to have decent off the ball acceleration, the ability to cross and dribble. Maybe positioning should be about 11 to 12, not too far off the league average. Here we are playing in the Premiership, so we're looking at something like 11 to 12 or maybe a fullback. If they have something better, great. If you need him, then this guy looks like a decent choice because he's okay as cover, but valued at 8.75 million. Realistically speaking, I wouldn't be paying for him. So if this player, you've already reached like 70%, just acknowledge it or add him to the short list, and just that will stop. You don't have to continue scouting these players. Like Chuba Akpong, the same thing. There's enough on the screen right now to tell you whether or not he's going to be worth signing. Then you can go to the scout reports here. They give you a bit more information, and you can use this to give you an indication of whether he might be decent to as a player in your squad. Finally, look at his attributes. Are they worth it? He's got great acceleration going from stamina and strength, pace. His physicals for his age, they are incredible, which is like a bit strange, but never mind. Always make sure that you go to your income side, and then you can check from here what your scouting costs are going to be when you look through this panel here. See, this season, you've already spent £129,465 on scouting. Now, your budget is only $720,000. So you from this $720,000, your package is 120 and 102. That's about 200 over K for your package. The balance is all these little things that you do when you're scouting, they're just gonna add on and add on. The next thing you know, you're in deep shit. So you want to make sure that you have a very focused plan when it comes to scouting. Scouting is something that a lot of people are getting wrong, and I've noticed this on the forums, and I've noticed everywhere. There's a way to manage scouting in the game, but the problem right now is that there is a disconnect between the actual database that we pay for, because most people are going to assume that when we this is your database, you've already paid for this database. People are expecting, all right, I paid for this database, I should have most of the values in. So if you've got most of the values and you see some players, like, what you want to do is you want to have a view like this where you can put the recommendations here, and this should be enough for you for the time being. But you're going to see all these other players that are in your database, right? Dan Sweeney, he's not in your he's in your database. They've got a range of numbers like that. Then what you do is you make sure that you scout based, you do intelligent scouting. If you want to use this player search function, then you zone in on your attributes, have a age range, and pick a condition where it's the value, something that you can afford. And Other than that, exclude the rest. Be very, very disciplined about how you use scouting. We've looked through the scouting, the dynamics. We've looked at other stuff. Now, finally, let's look at the team report. Now, when you look at a team report, there are two ways to analyze your team report. The first way is to look at your own formation. So we've got you've got your formation. Basically, you've got two formations. You've got a 3-4-3 that looks like this, and you've also got a 4-1-2-3. So one of the ways I actually determine whether I want to scout is to use this. Now, if your system is using custom roles, you can always go through your screen like this, and you'll be able to tell whether there's enough coverage in your team. This will allow you to decide whether you should be scouting for certain players in a certain position. Now, this is a far more effective way of playing. I find that this is the most effective way. I choose to do it this way because it's I love it. It makes a lot more sense. Here we know Isaac Hayden is your second choice, and then Jonjo Shelby third choice. We can see that perhaps the biggest thing that you need right now is a defensive midfielder in your team, because your depth leaves a lot to be desired. So we know that you might be on the lookout for somebody who's good enough, who's got good acceleration, because your players that you have, Jonjo Shelby, Jonjo Shelby's biggest weakness is his inability to twist and turn, right? He's great at just, if he sees a ball and he's got time on his hands, nobody's putting him under pressure. Jonjo Shelby has a great game. The moment Jonjo Shelby gets into a game where he's put under pressure, he's screwed up. He screws up. So this is based on these attributes: agility, balance. So he's not very good at twisting and turning. What I will do is I will elect to scout for a central midfielder using this panel. All right, so let's bring this down. So you notice this, you're going to have to go all the way down, and that's left your transfer budget with little wiggle room. It's very, very important that you manage your scouting very carefully, because your scouting budget is now only 683k. So you're going to be very, very careful with your targets, and you want to make sure that you keep it in check. All right, so let's take a look at your squad. Very quickly, let's look at your tactic. Now, this is a tactic you've got, and you've got another tactic here. These are your two basic tactics. You got a target man. Let's quick pick your tactic, and you've got a target man here. I went to the Ask Man, and it's come up with a target man that you could use in the form of Mitrovic, right? So he is a target man, and then you've got another striker in your team by the name of Dwight Gill. All right, he's got lots of acceleration, decent finishing, and composure. And up top, we've got Mitrovic, whose finishing isn't that good. So as a target man, he offers a few options, but they're not entirely convincing at the moment. So we're looking at a tactic, and I'm not going to make a judgment of this tactic yet, okay? Because what we know from a tactic is you're looking at exploring width. You're going to play wider, use offside, try much higher defensive line. This is like maxed out, and I'm not a big fan of this, especially when you're not playing with a DM. And this kind of a tactic, especially when you've got flank spaces open, this is going to be extremely vulnerable. You've got an attacking playmaker on the left or holding up. This guy is going to be a magnet for the ball. However, when he's a magnet for the ball, he's going to have only one way to play the game. He's going to either pass it to the target man or look for spaces for the winger attack, if his passing range allows him to do that. So far, this is based on your Ask-Man's recommendations. And then we got these guys in midfield. This is set up, and you're playing like this. Okay, fine. Then you've got a 4-1-2-3. Same thing. You want to play with a Mazzala inside for a cutting inside. Again, you're using a target man. Once again, target mans make tactics very one-dimensional. That's my personal opinion, and I don't really like to use target man unless I'm using him as a pair, and I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a lot of the players can work very well together. But before we can even do that, let's find out how your attackers have done. So we've got all these attackers here. We've got Mitrovic as well, and let's look at his headers at the moment. So if you're thinking about playing a target man, the first thing you want to know is how many attempts do they make in a game, and how many do they win. Mitrovic has played 3 games for you this season, has attempted 27 headers in the game, and has won less than half of them. That's the third. That's like, for a target man on support, that's not convincing. Then we've got Dwight Gill, who's you also used in 1 appearance. Naturally, I think you only used him as a target man once, and he completely fell. It's shocking, but he scored 3 goals. This guy has made 3 starts, 3 appearances, 3 goals, and then he's in 1 of his appearances, he scored 3 goals. So here we notice that his shot on percentage is also better than our friend here, who's got 1.33 shot on percentage. Shot percentage is not so good. And if you're looking at Mitrovic's numbers by themselves, he actually makes a better option when you play him in a pair. So he can be a centre forward on attack, right? Or centre forward and support, or deep line forward and support. And he can play one of those roles, and then you play him with somebody else. Then he becomes a very exciting proposition. But if you play him as a lone forward, he doesn't bring so much to the table. His off the ball is 13. He's finishing, more importantly. If he's a lone man up top, his finishing and composure 12 and 13. This reflected on his shot percentages, so they're pretty low. So I would not be playing Mitrovic on his own in this system. What about other strikers? You got Joselu. Again here, target. You remember, we're applying this to the target man that you have. Whether you have players who can play the target man position. A target man has to either be a target for the team to pass the ball so he can lay it off to somebody else. Here we have a player who's got finishing of 15 and composure of 11. Okay, average, anticipation, bravery, not very good on the turn. Very, very average. Joselu is okay. He's not fantastic. Then we've got Ayos Perez. Now, Ayos Perez is a very interesting player. He's by far the most intelligent out-and-out player that you have at the moment. He's got good acceleration, good off the ball, good decisions, fantastic first touch, finishing and composure is there. So you want to use this guy in your system. Somehow or another, he's got to fit into your system. And at the moment, he's not really... I wouldn't say that you have a system that can use him to his fullest potential, because he can't be a Mazzala. If he's a Mazzala, he doesn't have he's a 50-50 Mazzala, because he's only going to be... You can only play him in an attack duty. He can't do any support work for you, so you can't expect him to defend. So it's like he's a player in a 4-3-1-2 or a diamond with an AM. He's the AM in a 4-2-3-1, that kind of a position. But he's not a player that you can play in a flat 4. Then finally, we got Dwight Gill. Dwight Gill, I kind of like him. I don't know why. Maybe it's his name. But he's got decent finishing, decent composure. He's what I would call a balanced striker. He's got great pace and acceleration, decent agility and balance. So he can twist and turn. He may not have great bravery, but he definitely has most of the attributes in the right places to be a good striker. Okay, so in your team, I would go, what are my... If I have a 3-man strike force, these 3 are going to be playing. Very, very nice. And you have options. You want to go with 2 as well. Now, let's look at your defenders. Once again, the first thing we want to do is I'm going to look at your defenders in terms of how they handle the pressure at the back. Here we got the central defenders. So let's just zoom this down just to the central defenders. And what we see here is these are all your central defenders. Aerial attempts, headers 1. Aerial attempts, headers 1. There's a close correlation. Ciaran Clark, Florian Lejeune. Okay, this is good in the air. The rest of the players, well, they don't really attempt very many headers, bound to the fact that most of them haven't played a lot of games. Jamal, Lascelles, not too bad, 4.4, 5.5. But we can see that there's some standouts in your team. Now, let's look at the attributes themselves. Positioning for Florian is 14. Jumping reach is 14. Heading is 16. Anticipation, concentration. He's got the right attributes for being a solid central defender. However, he's slow. Okay, so now that we've seen this, let's focus in on the attributes themselves. So in terms of positioning, your best defenders, best footballing brains are Ciaran Clark and of course Chanchel Bemba, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Anticipation 14, 15, concentration 13. But then here we go. We need them to have decent concentration. So I immediately zoom in for the defender who's got the best at heading. So we got Jamal 15-15. Then we've got Ciaran 14-14, and then we've got Florian 14-16. So these are your 3 defenders who are basically good in the air. So you're going to be playing them in most of your games. Then we got concentration. They're okay except for these 2. They're not so fantastic. They have decent pace except for Florian, who's the slowest. So you might want to put him as he's like cover. Basically, he's cover. You can't expect him to bolt on and do the job. And then we got the average anticipation. Now let's look at the team report, compare them to the rest of the league. So we got technical mentals here. All right, let's go, boys. Let's feel how you ranked versus the rest of the league. Below average positioning. The best 14, if it is 14.71 is the best. You can bet you the best teams are at 15 for their first choice central defenders, or 16. So okay. But now let's see how they cope with the strikers. Now, why did I go with the strikers here? I want to see what the off the ball is. So what the best strikers in the lands off the ball is. 16 is the off the ball. So off the ball is versus position. It's like off the ball attribute goes to war with positioning attribute. Who is going to be the winner here? The winner is the strikers who are coming up against your players. So their positioning is not fantastic. So it's a risk that you're going to play. And this is going to be a bit of a concern for you going forward. And this puts a burden on your defenders. So what do you have in terms of midfielders then? Midfielders positioning, mental, below average. This covers every midfielder in the team. So you do want to be very careful with jumping into this gun. All right. Now, what about your attackers, your midfielders in the attack duties? Then we've got pace, anticipation, jumping, heading. We're looking at the physical attributes here for your midfielders and strikers. Where is acceleration? Here we go. 14.87 for Man City, 13.33. So you can see where you fit in the rest of the league. So it is a challenge for your team to play certain systems. Systems where you push up the defensive line are not your best kind of systems. So if you play with a pushed up defensive line, you got zero acceleration, defenders are also in air positioning. What's going to happen is balls are played over the top, they're going to be out of position half the time. So as you can see here, you played a whole match against Tottenham Hotspur, right? Let's see the kind of goals that Spurs scored against you. Victor Wanyama, defensive midfielder. How did he score? From a throw, as you can see, you were the one attacking them and they countered at length. And that's it. They've got the ball into the box. And without, yes, so that's one. We don't need to see any more. And I expect that there might have been an issue here as well. So I'm expecting your players to struggle. Again, you are the one attacking. So Ayos with the ball, plays it to Mitrovic to Ali Reza. You lose the ball. This is where Silva gets the ball. They play out to flank. You can see your high defensive line. This is the first sign that you always get that your defensive line is too high. All the players are running. They all can see the goalkeeper. All right, they're all chasing. Perisic is in a position to cross the ball, and they still haven't got to their positions. Aguero is in a brilliant position, but Sterling comes from the far post to score. Too high, your defensive line. So the boys can't play that kind of a game. So if you look at the second goal from Aguero, okay, it happened straight off the game. Let's slow this thing down a bit. I play games at quite a speed nowadays. Lejoin to Memba. Memba plays to Hayden to Mankilo. Mankilo is not a bad player. De Bruyne to Company to Silva again. Okay, now let's look where your defensive line is. They're going to retract. Your defensive line is quite high. Silva is in a great position. You can see Perisic is about to break your defensive line. Aguero is just there. And Sterling is waiting to break into space. Silva brings the ball up. Perisic to Alexandro. They played the ball out to Alexandro. Should have been offside, but never mind. Alexandro crosses it. Yes, they beat you for pace all the time. So we want to do certain things, and you're vulnerable down the flanks. And in this match, when we look at the analysis, the tactic that you used here was this tactic. You used this tactic. You had a player sent off as well. Now, you notice one thing. Even if you put a wing-back on defense on this flank, he still had a hell of a job trying to catch all the other players. So, Mankilo, so what can you do? What are the ways in which you can play a system? Now, what I'm going to do is, I've gone through your tactics, and basically, I've seen this tactic, and I've seen this tactic. Now, when I look at this tactic, my concern is there's no ball-winning midfielder, firstly. Secondly, and this is something that's very, very interesting. Now, let's go to your squad, because we haven't finished analyzing your squad before we jump into the tactics. There's something about your team that is very, very interesting, and it's got to do with the players that you have. Uh, Here we got your fullbacks. We haven't done all your fullbacks. We only seen the central ones. Now let's look at your fullbacks. We have several fullbacks, but there's something that will jump up straight away. You have a fullback with 19 acceleration. The moment I saw that, I went, "Oh my god, this is a dream come true." For me, it's a dream come true. I mean, I've got Usain Bolt playing for me. Okay, DeAndre Yedlin with acceleration of 19, pace of 19. This guy just he loves getting forward. So what do you? This is one player I would like go. Okay, fine. He's very very fast. What about your other players? You've got decent players who are on the flanks who've got very very good acceleration. You got Masedro Haidara who's got good acceleration. Positioning is okay. Then we got Javi Mankiro is a bit on the slow side. Now, can he? He's not very good on the turn, as you can see. He lost out to some of the players earlier when we were watching those highlights. Then we got Paul Drummond. He's not too bad. Acceleration 14, positioning 14, tackling 15. Then we got Chiaran Clark. I don't know how to pronounce that. And then we got Jesus Gomez. So essentially, you got one wingback who's super super duper fast. Now, if I have a wingback that's super duper fast like that, and I've got decent wingbacks, I'm going to play differently. I won't play like this. I'll play like this. Now, this tactic, you're going to concede a lot of goals because you want to exploit his acceleration. Now, he makes for a good defender as well. And I'll show you a strategy I will use to get him to defend a bit more effectively. But what I would do with if I had a team like that, and I know that I have, this guy is great in the air, and I can pair him up with somebody, but this is going to be a bit harder. I'll just play a kind of a counter-attacking game. So here, what I will do, I mean, please ignore all the players because we haven't, set them correctly. But the whole goal here is to exploit Yedelin's pace. Now, Yedelin is very fast. So he's got acceleration at 19. His crossing is half decent. So when it comes to his training and development, we'll be training him I can train him as a wing back on the right. Again, we can focus on this development. And then what we will do is we'll exploit him to charge into those kind of spaces. We got a playmaker here looking to play passes over here. We're going to have a stopper covering defender. Goalkeeper we'll give the goalkeeper simple instructions. We won't tell the goalkeeper what to do, but one thing we want to know is whether he's got vision. He's only got 9 visions and his kicking is 13. So we're going to leave him. We're not going to tell him to do distribution from the back just yet. And then this is how I would set up my tactic. Now, you've got several other options as well. You can also play the 4-3-1-2 because you've got this attacking bulldozer over here. So you can play a 4 at the back, 3 here, 1 here, and 2 here as well because you have Ayos Perez as well. So you can put him here. You can have this guy bombing down the flanks like a choo-choo train. And then you got this 3 holding the fort at the back. And then you can lock down one flank and just have the kind of an attack pattern going. So you got options here. You don't have to play this system. This system, while it looks okay on paper, it doesn't play to your strengths. Well, our match against Chelsea turned out to be a humdinger. This was the lineup that we fielded on the day, and I was looking forward to an exciting match. And we set up in opposition instructions. Now, these opposition instructions ended up being the wrong ones I said, and I had to make a quick change after we conceded a goal. I should not have OI'd the wing back on the left and the right. I should have allowed them to bring the ball up. The choice of using a target man proved very, very fortuitous. Mitrovic winning the header, laying out for Gill. Again, the Yedlin in a nice position to lay the pass for Gill. Gill crossing it perfectly to Mitrovic. There we go. We take the early lead. I was already jumping out of my chair. So I've recorded this for the show in the hot seat where I do the complete playthrough for this game. But here I was pretty happy with our initial foray into their half, which was our first attack of the game inside 3 minutes and 30 seconds. What I failed to observe in this game was how my closing down opposition instructions were not working. Azpilicueta managed to escape the attentions of our defenders, pulling my central defender out of position because my wingback had gone to close down a bit early. Now, I learned from this mistake and I immediately then removed the instruction for the OI. We managed to extend our lead. Good work from the back. Lascelles back to Shelby. Shelby now to Yedlin. Now, I don't understand why you have transfer listed this player, but he's definitely in my book as a very important player. Mitrovic adding 2 to the scoreline. You also want to make sure that Jonjo Shelby does not take penalties because he missed the penalty. We should have had a 3-2 lead. Yedlin again played an important role on the right flank, helping us to get another well-worked goal from the right, and Mitrovic finishing this game with a hat-trick. We also won our next match against Newcastle away from home, 2-0. Yedlin, man of the match, without a doubt. This time around, in terms of the tactic I used for the second match, we actually went with a 4-1-3-2. So we'll just run through both the tactics very quickly. Now, this is the system that I created for you. Here, I'm gonna once again, I'll just go through all the player roles. So this is the system I created for you. Very simple. We've got a goalkeeper and defend, stopper, cover. I wanted to play a cover for this player. Please ignore the fact it's Jonjo Shelby. We haven't quick picked it. So if you quick pick it, it'll be these players. Then we got a wing back, edit player instructions. You'll notice he's got mark specific position, AMR, and he's got these play instructions. On the right flank, Mankilo, few risky passes, sit there on mark specific position. Naturally, it's going to be the wing back on the opposite flank. Then we got a ball winning midfielder, close down much more. I did change this later in the game. If you see the playthrough, you'll see that I changed this into a central midfielder on support. We close down more because they kept overlapping. This is not Marino's position. This is just a central midfielder on defense. We had an 8 attacking playmaker with dribble less, and then we had a DLF on support with a poacher on attack. The 4-1-3-2, I kind of enjoyed it. Control structure, team instructions, float, use offside track, prevent shot goalkeeper distribution, and this was a cool target man poacher system. Even though we didn't get all the possession, I kind of expected it, but I kind of like the fact that we have a system that's built not for Mankilo. It's built for the player you have decided to transfer list. I'd like to thank Inzan for sending in our first Gamechanger episode for FM18. Now, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Don't forget to watch the sequel to this, In the Hot Seat, where I do the full playthrough for both the tactics. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me on Twitter at Bustthenet or addicted2fm.com, my website. Once again, I'd like to thank my patrons for making these kind of shows possible for the rest of the community. You guys take care and have a good one. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.